So we are back with another update on 90 Day Fiance Happily Ever After Season 9. If you'd like to check out my part 1, I'll link that in the corner for you. But let's get right into it. So first on our list is Brandon and Julia. We left off with Julia giving Brandon basically an ultimatum. Either you go to Europe with me or we're done basically. This marriage is over. Or at least that's what it was sounding like. So Julia leaves Brandon behind for him to make a decision, and she goes to drop her parents off to the airport, and she spends a couple days up there, then comes back down to see what Brandon had decided. He decides to quit his job and buy the tickets, but telling his parents about it turned out to be a lot more dramatic than they thought. And now Brandon again has to choose between his parents and Julia because of course they think this trip thing is stupid. But I think Brandon knows that this might really be it for him and Julia, so he just decides to go, and I could tell from the outside looking in that Julia was pretty serious. So now Brandon has to leave his relationship with his parents in shambles for the time being. Next we have Adnan and Tagalali. Now I haven't heard anything from them since the birth of their son when it comes to the show, but I did hear through the grapevine that they decided to end their marriage and are now separated but are going to file for divorce. Because apparently they had just stopped filming and TLC didn't really comment on it either, so it was just kind of weird. But yeah, I'm not really shocked. That man was throwing tantrums every other day, and it was more than just being controlling. That man was unhinged. Next we have Guillermo and Cara. Now there isn't much to say about them either, besides them looking like they're heading for divorce. Just to be real. I don't think there's much that can be done there because Cara doesn't really think that she's done anything wrong, even though she's been out all hours of the night, which she claims is for her performances. But on top of that, she's super secretive, so why would he trust you, you know? Next we have Gino and Jasmine. Now there has been a lot, and I mean a lot, going on with Gino and Jasmine as per usual. As we know, Jasmine told Gino that she was pregnant with Matt's baby, and they're also moving to Miami for Matt's new job, and Gino is understandably pissed. Matt and Jasmine are now in Miami, and her vegan diet pretty much went completely out the window with those ribs. But they find out that they're having a girl, and Matt seems happy at first, but he's kind of surprised that it wasn't a boy. But then he starts acting kind of weird about it. And Jasmine is feeling a way about that as well, because according to her, her father had basically disowned her and didn't really want to be in her life after he'd found out that she was a girl. Now, I did think that she was being a little dramatic at first, but Matt was acting really ungrateful, talking about how he was going to keep pestering her for a boy. And this woman is about to be in her 40s. This was a surprise, okay? This was not a plan. They could very well try for another kid together, but that could also be a girl. What then? You know? But anyways, shortly after all this drama, Jasmine gets a call from Gino about how she owes him $75,000 as repayment for all the years that he'd been paying her rent and other expenses. And I have to say, I find that kind of interesting that he put that in there because it's like, I mean, Gino, she used to pay for things for herself and you were the one that cost her job. Do you not remember this? Like, I think he kind of forgets certain details, you know? But he also claims that he decided to file a complaint to immigration for fraud, basically claiming that Jasmine had played him and tricked him into bringing her to the US. So, if what he's saying is true, she could potentially be deported, and she goes to a lawyer and also finds out that Gino could lay claim to her unborn daughter because he would technically be, by Florida's law, presumed as the father, since they're still legally married. So it's just a mess, and to add fuel to the fire, Jasmine feels like Matt is hiding her because he hasn't made an effort for her to meet any of his family. But she does get to meet one of his friends, and even he points out that their relationship or situationship is a mess. Not only is Jasmine pregnant with his child, but she's also still married to another man, and Matt's mom is Romanian and very religious, so he already knows that she's not gonna like that too much. But at this point, Jasmine is about to give birth in just a few weeks, so they're gonna have to say something soon. Next, we have Jovi and Yara, Andre and Elizabeth, and Alexi and Lauren. Now, I decided to put all three of these couples together because their drama is basically linked at this point. Elizabeth and Lauren are still not in a good place, and they haven't talked to each other since that really awkward conversation that they had after their big blow-up at Yara's event. But Yara convinces them to come along with their husbands to Lake Placid for a little getaway. Now, Yara, Jovi, Lauren, and Alexi are good with just them, but they're really nervous about Elizabeth and Andre coming. They don't come until the next day, but the night before, they decided to play Never Have I Ever, and the subject of old photos comes up and how everyone looked in their teen years, and that's when Jovi puts his foot in his mouth. He says that Yara's photos are the worst and she didn't look anything like how she looks now, and it basically comes across as though he's saying that she was ugly back then. And he does try to save himself by saying that he meant that she's more beautiful now. He's trying to make it seem like a compliment, but it did not come across that way at all. So things just go all the way downhill, and the argument between Jovi and Yara continues after Lauren and Alexei pretty much dismiss themselves and they go to their room. But thankfully the next morning they seemed to be in a better mood. They were sorta kinda able to figure things out, but when Elizabeth and Andre come in, it's still pretty awkward. Andre keeps trying to make jokes, but it seems to just be making things weirder. But Jovi's kind of the only one that could pick up on him, at least trying to ease the tension. But they do some group activities and everything is going decently. But later that evening in the hot tub, that Yara and Jovi situation gets brought back up. And now everyone is basically ganging up on Jovi, and Yara walks off crying. And I understood the emotion because Yara explains that her family and others had bullied her for her looks in the past, so there's a lot of pain there. But I felt like it shouldn't have been brought back up if Jovi already apologized several times. But anywho, the next day the guys and the ladies decide to split up and do some things separately, and everything of course is going well with the men, but the ladies start having some problems. Who would have thought? Lauren brings up how she still felt hurt by Elizabeth's betrayal, but Elizabeth is still stuck in this mindset that she didn't do anything wrong, and that what Lauren said was on par with what she said to Alexei, and it really wasn't, in my opinion. Elizabeth just doesn't really strike me as good friend material. Lauren, on the other hand, does a lot of yapping, but she always means well. She can just be a little overbearing, kind of. She kind of reminds me of Brandon's mom, Betty. She likes to insert herself into things that don't really concern her, but it's because she really cares for people. But Elizabeth, on the other hand, seems like the type of person to kind of collect secrets and use it at just the right moment to destroy someone and start some ish. And to be honest, even though Andre is an a-hole, I think that Elizabeth has a heavy part to play in why they don't speak to her family anymore. But it got even weirder when Elizabeth had told Lauren to basically talk to Andre about him saying that he read their text messages the other night when they were arguing with Alexei. But like Yara had said many times, I just feel like this whole thing is just stupid. Our last couple on the list is Darcy and Georgie. So now Darcy and Georgie are heading back to the US after their stay in Bulgaria, but things get tense mainly because Georgie felt like he was being ganged up on with Stacy there. And soon they just leave for the airport without him and he goes alone. Then back in Florida, they meet with their friends for dinner and they start talking about their trip to Bulgaria, and that's when they start arguing again and Darcy basically dares him to file for divorce. And it's just embarrassing. But now Darcy and Stacy are having a fashion show coming up in New York, so Georgie comes along. They make a short stop in Massachusetts for Darcy to see her daughters and dad, but this is when she decides to spring up on Georgie that she's thinking about coming back to Massachusetts for a bit because their lease is about to be up back in Miami. And to be honest, watching that scene, I was like, weren't you just complaining about Georgie keeping stuff from you and not telling you things, and now you're doing it to him? They didn't even discuss that as a possibility. But her dad is looking at her like, hell nah, because she would have to end up staying with him, it seems, and Stacy would basically follow suit. And he was not interested in having both Darcy and Georgie and also Stacy and Florian living with him. Like, that was just, it was a no for him. So Stacy and Florian, they arrive shortly after and they get ready to head to the show. But I think it was before that happens that Darcy has a conversation with her father about Georgie pretty much not giving her the rent money until her dad had decided to step in and kind of put pressure on him to do so, because they do split the rent 50-50. But yeah, she basically sees this as him trying to run away again, because I think a little while back they had actually found some money that he was keeping in a sock and it was just looking kind of weird, like he was using it as an escape plan. And to be honest, yes, it does sound like that, it looks like that, but at the same time it's like, I mean, Darcy, you out here basically saying that this man should get a divorce. You putting it out there that you okay with him potentially divorcing you. So I really would not be surprised if this relationship and marriage just falls apart, to be real with you. I give it like maybe a year or two more, but I'm pretty sure in a good bit there's probably going to be another message similar to Adnan and Tiger Lily. But you guys can let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments, but also stay tuned for my video coming on 90 Day Fiance the other way. This is going to be season 7 and there is quite a bit to discuss on that one as well, so do stay tuned for that. But I'll catch you guys in the next video.